And so that's why we see mega churches and prosperity gospel and all of that. Because
give me all your money. Give me your gold watches. I'll put them in a big old metallurgy. Listen, folks, I'm not bragging. I'm not bragging, folks, but I did hear about this based homeschool mama. I think that's what you call her. She wrote a book called Occult Feminists in Comedy or something. But listen, we're going to have her on the show. Okay, she's a great woman, very knowledgeable. Stay tuned, folks. We got the documents.
So he was really inspired by the 40s film, Nightmare Alley. And in the Satanic Bible, he talks about how he was an organist, right, at the carnival, and he was an organist at the church, and he saw all the Christians come in on Sunday and pray for forgiveness and confession. And then on, Saturday, they'd be back at the carnival drinking and sleeping with hookers and stuff. So
well, that's what LaVey said in the book.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
But I don't think he actually was an organist. I think that he actually was inspired by that film because that ties in. Jay did a great review of that film, and basically the way that the carnival caller, like the holler, who's getting these rubes, these marks into the carnival to trick them, is the same exact thing that occultism and in sorcery is all about. It's about manipulating people and extracting things from them and getting your will to be done on these rubes, on these foolish idiots, right? The humble peasants, the good everyday man and woman, right? They're fools. The Satanism, occultism, they're the predators, they're the wolves that are trying to attack the sheep, right? Like that's where one of his inspirations was that film, because that film and that book is all about that manipulative carny-esque thing of manipulating people and that. So
well, that wouldn't shock me. So I guess from my mind's eye, LaVey was yet another one of these kind of phony parapsychologists or parasocialists or parasociology, whatever the hell you want to call it, much like the Warrens were, Ed Warren and Lorraine Warren. I don't think that these people did anything more than really tap into some type of natural fear while at the same time utilizing what was coming out of Hollywood in order to kind of push their own self-aggrandizing agenda. And they made a lot of money. Both all of these types of kind of now famous grifters sure made an awful lot of money, but that doesn't mean that there wasn't outside influences pushing them, even if they were just patsies, right?
That's the thing, is that there's not this strict dividing line between they were doing it and they don't even believe in these forces and these forces are helping them. I think it kind of all coalesces together, right? Like it's through their rejection of God and of the spiritual. It's through they're consciously willing to do evil and to not feel bad about it, right? It's an exchange. You do evil and you get rewarded in some way. Demons, I know you talked with DPH and Father Ananias about that, just the kind of exchange that happens with demonic things, whether it's like you're taking drugs, right? And they make you feel comfortable. They make you feel okay. They make you feel safe. But meanwhile, you're open to robbery, to the thieves coming in at night and stealing the gifts that God has given you. And so with demons, it's always an exchange. So maybe these people get very rich. Maybe they get very wealthy. And in the end, the demons get their soul. All the demon wants is to kill you. All the demon wants is for you to go into the abyss, into hell, to miss out on the gift of salvation that Christ gives. So
I think that this is a fairly astute statement, Based. I don't even think we would disagree with it. A pretty real assessment of modern Christianity, holy on Sunday, back to sinning on Monday. That does seem to be the state that we're kind of running into these days, isn't it?
Yeah. I think that I think that people will often misunderstand someone like a lot of these guys, and they'll say, for instance, that someone like Crowley was pure grifter and was a carnival barker, and I think that that's true on some level. However, it's also it's sort of it's underestimating their intent and their effectiveness, because Crowley was very knowledgeable about the Bible. I think LaVey was too. I think going back to your what you said about LaVey and his written work, I think that yes, it's poorly written, but in a sense that helps his cause because a lot of these guys, I mean, even if you look at certain, infamous dictators in their written works or their manifestos, the more intellectual it is, the less effective it is. I mean, even if you read like Mao Zedong's Guerrilla Warfare, it's a very plain book. It's purely based on practicality and emotion, and I think that that's one thing that serves these people. In fact, that probably is one of Crowley's own downfalls in terms of like his effectiveness in the wider culture, in that he tried to be too, his written work is almost incomprehensible. And if he had been a little more plain spoken, like LaVey was, he may have been, more effective. Glad that's not the case. But yeah, I think that I think that it's interesting with these guys. And I think that like we sort of mentioned a minute ago, it's interesting how these grifters, these occult guys, they make a lot of money, but when it comes to the really big ones, the money is not. We all know this. The money is not the object. It's not the aim. It's either the furthering of an agenda through which they're sponsored, or it's the simple power. And Crowley, of course, is the perfect example of that. Wanting ultimate power, power over human beings. He believed, he convinced a lot of people that he had invisibility, that he could be invisible, right? And yes, he was sort of grifting off people's fortunes. He went through he had a considerable fortune that he inherited from the Crowley Ale family fortune. But that actually ties into the statement that was just made that, Crowley himself grew up in this Plymouth Brethren devout sort of sect in Leamington Spa in England. And his father was a Jonathan Edwards type. And yet, for all of that, they had a major brewery, and they were selling alcohol, and they owned all these pubs, but they were speaking out against it on Sunday. So yeah, it's an interesting statement.
Yeah. Can I address that comment, yes. Andrew?
No, you can't. No, you can't. Yeah, you can. Go ahead.
Yeah. So the whole idea of, these Christians are hypocrites, right? They're asking forgiveness on Sunday and sinning on Monday. That's called being a Christian. Every human being is fallen. Every single one of us sins because we are deeply sick on a soul level. We delight in doing good, and it's very hard. We delight in doing evil, and it's very hard for us to do good. And that's the sickness, right? That's what Christ is saving us from. They're saving us from the death that came into our souls from the fall, right? So to say that we're hypocrites is misunderstanding like the first base level of being a Christian, which is to say, I am a sinner. I am a wretch. I can't stop myself from sinning. I need Christ to save me. That's so you can't point to a Christian and say, oh, you guys sin, so you're hypocrites. It's like, we know we sin. That's why we confess. That's why we go to liturgy. That's why we pray for forgiveness, right? And we try, and we keep getting back up and trying.
But I think from the layman's critique, and I do think it's a fair critique, is to look at things like the prosperity gospel and these various other types of things that have come out of these MegaChurches. You remember the Jay Dyer bit? I just recently saw it. Church, right?
Random balls.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that kind of the point behind that is what MegaChurches are kind of like, right? Mm-hmm. We're going to have the big monster truck shades. It's not going to have anything to do with the ritualistic worship of God, and everything to do with the big screen TV and the, and the pizza Sunday and the, and this type of thing. So I do think that, from an outsider looking in, who's not a Christian, or maybe wasn't raised in any type of environment like that, or even some who were, look at this and they look at these big, ginormous church entities and these kinds of things and think this is the biggest con they ever saw. Right. And they're not wrong.
They're
really.
Not wrong.
They're not wrong.
That's why heresy is so insidious, because that's not true. That's not true Christianity. It's a distortion. It's really a demonic thing, and it calls itself Christianity. And so from an outsider, they think Christian. We're all just lumped together. No. True Christianity is a straight and narrow path, only for the very few. Only the very few are going to actually walk that path and do the hard work of denying yourself and mastering, being a master over the passions. So Orthodox Christians and true Christians will be the first ones to point out that sort of nonsense. And why do those MegaChurches do it? Because the straight and narrow path, that's only a few people. You're not going to make that much money. If your goal is money and prosperity and success, you need a message that the wide reaching, the wide swath of people will accept and embrace and give you their money. And so that's why we see mega churches and prosperity gospel and all of that. Because
give me all your money. Give me your gold watches. I'll put them in a big old metallurgy.
Put your hands on the screen.
But I think that these things are all in some way tied together in kind of the great grift, right? The great grift being much like you see there was a lot of people that made a lot of money on this alien hunting, and on these kinds of conspiracy theories and this type of nonsense. I mean, they made a shitload of money on it. And it seems like people are everywhere in their ability to co-opt the message, make it as palatable to as many people as possible, you know what I mean? And completely destroy what it meant to begin with. Isn't that kind of the mark of the demonic based?
Yeah, there are two aspects of that. I mean, one is the idea that the people who are all for aliens are they're the same people who say, no, we couldn't live in a world created by God. We couldn't have, a creator. We couldn't have God. But at the same time, no, the aliens created us, and they are these extraterrestrial beings that are bigger than us, and it's them. They're the ones who did it. The other idea is that I forgot to mention that one of the weirdest, I guess, elements of this is that Brenda Densler wrote, this was in a CIA document, talked about how the ultimate agenda of, we talk about the agendas, 2020, 2030, whatever, 2050, the ultimate agenda for, I guess, overall control is the idea of the fake and Gahay alien invasion, right? Because she said specifically that it would destroy people's last vestiges of faith and would ultimately annihilate their belief in Christianity. And that would allow for, the final total control element, which I think is interesting because it shows that this isn't just something that, like weirdos at Area 51 or even just Hollywood talk about. This is something that people in intelligence, people in military, and people in elite circles truly consider. So,
well, Alex Jones talked a bit about that years ago. I remember saying that they were working on a microprocessor technology that could basically beam out into the sky a giant picture that would be reminiscent and look like an actual alien attack. Right. I was very skeptical of those claims until I came across various documents that showed that there are actual projectors that are used in warfare in order to show aerial attacks that are coming that actually are not coming. They actually have one such projector that's called the Mirage. And that's what it does, right? It's designed. And when you think back in warfare to D-Day and various things like this, where they used blow up tanks and they wanted to make all warfare is deception. Why wouldn't you want a giant projector machine that showed a massive enemy, coming in, even if there really wasn't? That would be very useful to have. So taking it to the next level and saying, you could fake some type of alien attack with it, that sounds more plausible than not, doesn't it?
Yeah. Another example of that was real, that's pretty recent is, and it's not visual, it's auditory, is you can still see his interviews on YouTube. This guy, Dr. I can't remember his name, Robert. I can't remember his name, but he's the one who invented the tech, the voice of God technology. And he talks about how, they did brain studies. They did, using the brain basically as an acoustical device. And when they have those LRAD weapons that they use now for riot dispersal, what they did was
the sonic noise making weapons.
That's right. Yeah, ELF, low frequency weapons. And what they found was that they could actually program auditory. You could type in a message and it would convert it to bits or whatever, and then they could simply record somebody's voice. And a lot of the insane people on the internet, the TIs, will talk about this as happening. And and who knows if that's true or not, but it is true in the sense that in the first Gulf War, they did line up those weapons, and they aimed them at I don't know if it was Quds Force, but who they aimed it at, and they programmed a message that said, "This is Allah, lay down your weapons," and they all heard it in their skulls, dropped their weapons, and ran into the desert. So, that was 30 years ago. So
and why wouldn't you want that technology for warfare? Right? You would, right?
Yeah, I think that the bad part is that a lot of times those exercises seem to be used as a practice for what will be used on us. A lot of that happened in Vietnam with the Phoenix Project, Phoenix program, and we see a lot of this now. And I don't know. I don't know where to go with that.
Yeah, the technology that
well, hang on before you get into that thought. Jethro for $10 says, "Epic Stream Kings, can each of you give us your best Papa Ewok impression? Also, Papa Ewok is coming for Based Homeschool Mom. You'll have to fight him in the octagon for her honor. BPF. I'm not bragging." Well, I'm not bragging either when I say it'd be the shortest fight in human history, but I will give you the best Papa Ewok impression that I can. Stick around for after the show is done, and I'll give it to you.
Listen, folks, I'm not bragging. I'm not bragging, folks, but I did hear about this Based Homeschool Mama. I think that's what you call her. She wrote a book called Occult Feminists in Comedy or something. But listen, we're going to have her on the show. Okay, she's a great woman, very knowledgeable. Stay tuned, folks. We got the documents.